on the Indy. The views and opinions expressed within the video content found on the Indy Comics Network are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the Indy Comics Network or its sponsors.
Hey everybody, good evening. It is Thursday night. Once again, it is time for Thursday Night Throwdown. I am your host, Rodney Fike. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, and Twitter at Rodney Fike Art. You can also just go to Linktree and Rodney Fike, and boom, there I'll be. So I'm there.
It's magic.
It's magic, yes. With us tonight, we have Richard Jones III and Russ and Sarah Cassedy. How we all doing, gang?
Hey.
Good.
Excellent. So let's go around the room, and Richard, everybody tell everybody who you are and what you do, where you can be found.
Yeah, my name is Richard Jones III. You can find me at Instagram, RLJ3Art, Facebook, RLJ3Art, and Twitter, RLJ3Art, and YouTube. Same thing. And you can find me at RLJ3.com.
Excellent. And what are you currently working on?
I'm currently working on a book called Mora with Tim Ingram.
Excellent.
Is writing it. So hopefully we've got it set to be released October 31st of 2023.
Nice. All right. And let's go to Russ and Sarah. What's up, guys?
Hey, I'm Russ. I can pretty much be found anywhere. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Hive, wherever, TikTok, even.
What are your handles?
I don't know. Just search me. I'm everywhere.
What are your handles?
I don't have any handles.
Are you doing the Mastodon?
No, I haven't. No, I didn't because it's one of those fractured places where you have to pick a server, and I think that people thought it was going to be cool, but then when they found out that they weren't on the right server from their friends, it just got really messy really quick.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But you can go to facebook.com/groups/Charms Comic, and that's where you'll find information about the comic that Sarah and I work on.
Excellent.
So,
that's cool.
Hello, Allison.
Allison's in there. Hey, how you doing, Allison? Thanks for popping in. So tonight we're going to center around creation and characters, favorite characters, characters you hate, and characters that you've created and where they come from. So Russ, let's start with you. In comics, who are your favorites?
So I am a nerdy hero kind of guy. So very much Spider-Man, the Flash, those kind of I guess comedy superhero kind of guys.
Yeah.
The characters that people can kind of relate to from a human standpoint.
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of people do, right? They pick characters that kind of relate to them or things that have happened in their life. And
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm not a big Batman guy. I mean, I like the Batman movies and Superman and that kind of stuff, but I don't read any of those comics or anything like that. So.
Okay. What about you, Sarah?
I read and devour novels. So I like snark. I like humor, like characters that have a lot of humor and a lot of sass, I would say. So, of course, because of him, and I say I'm a geek by marriage. So the online gaming and the, becoming a comic book writer definitely came out of this relationship.
But you're a Harry Potter nerd.
Oh, yeah, again, novels. So yeah,
Right.
I like intelligence, but usually I read sci-fi stuff. So, you know, magic and that kind of those genres. And I like the most of my writers, I would say, are female. So that I read. So
Okay.
anyway,
Fair
so.
enough. What about you, Richard? You got a favorite or a handful of favorites?
Oh, shoot. I got a handful of favorites, actually. I mean, on the comic book side, I've always loved Venom. I love that character. I just love the fact that he's a villain and a superhero all at the same time. And I think that's kind of the reason why I like some of the characters that I do like. It's because of that reason, like Frankenstein.
Yeah.
You know, it's always been one of my favorite characters. And he's kind of I guess you could say a villain and nice guy at the same time.
He's
I guess.
misunderstood.
Misunderstood. There we go. So yeah, I mean, those are the two main ones that I really, really dig. I've always dug.
I got you. Hey, Justin's in the house. What's up, Justin? He's saying the X-Men from the 90s. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chad threw a boo in there, so boo, Chad. But no, the X-Men from the 90s, they were huge.
Yeah.
You know, Jim Lee, Claremont era, and then at some point, Scott Lobdell took over. And
Well, I think there's different kinds of like and dislike as well, right? I mean, like I like the characters, Spider-Man and Flash.
yeah,
But when I shift over to what kind of art I like, I go to like Spawn. You know, like the Greg Capullo Spawn.
Yeah, gritty.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, so I mean to say that I
think
like
you're behind Howard the Duck.
Yeah, my wife said Howard the Duck.
there you go.
So, but I mean, yeah, there's lots of different ways that you can like characters, and I think that's a good thing, especially if you can like the same character in multiple ways. I mean, you know, like from an art standpoint, plus
Right.
you know, just how they're written.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's the reason. I think that's the reason why I like Frankenstein so much as well, is because of what. I mean, obviously, Rodney, you've talked about this before. You know who my favorite artist is, Bernie Wrightson.
Yeah.
So the way he's has drawn it and carried that story along, I think is brilliant. Really, I mean, I would actually like to see a movie done, just by what he's done with the storyline.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a video or something. I know there's the illustrated Frankenstein. But I would think at some point somebody would do a documentary on that. They've done documentaries on so many other things.
Yep.
Hey, that's right. I did do a Howard the Duck for Justin. Etrigan.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Visually, Etrigan is just so cool looking. Hey, Cameron's in the house. What's up, Cameron? He says, hey, everybody.
If there were any teenagers in the chat, they would instantly shout out like 50 different anime characters.
Yeah.
Actually, there's one anime character from Death Note that I actually love the design of him. I can never say his damn name. Ryuk?
Yeah.
Something like that.
I like,
really cool design.
Watched, what was it? Battle Angel Alita Battle Angel. And that character was pretty awesome too.
Yeah, they got some pretty cool designs on the anime side.
Yeah.
I don't know much about it, but
yeah, visually, it's some of the stuff's pretty stunning. But I don't know a lot either. I've got some favorites as well, and for various reasons, like you said, Russ. Some of it is for the art, and some of it is for the character. People ask me all the time who my favorite Marvel character is, and it's Hank Pym.
Interesting.
Because he's so flawed.
Yeah.
I mean, they all have flaws, but I grew up in a household where that was kind of prevalent, and so it's more personal to me, and I can relate to that with a father figure. He was my stepfather, but it was a Jekyll and Hyde. You never knew what you were going to get, and to see that in comics at a very young age really resonated with me. but I was always rooting for him. So, and consequently, he became my favorite character. Now, I also like Steve Rogers, Captain America. I like Peter Parker, Spider-Man. But yeah, for many different reasons. And as far as the art goes, absolutely right since Frankenstein. I grew up on John Byrne and George Perez. So the John Byrne Avengers, Alpha Flight. I love Puck. I think Puck is just the coolest character in the world. Nobody knew what to do with him after Byrne left. But yeah, it's just stuff like that. Batman. I like Batman. Go ahead.
All the ones you guys are describing too, they're characters with depth. Like they have they're multifaceted and they have depth. Whether it be, trying to figure out what direction they're going to go, or that razor's edge kind of piece. I think they're not one note. They have a story. They have, anger. They have, also that spirit too.
Yeah. They're on a journey. They're on a journey and they're trying to figure it out as they go along. Let's see. Chad says, I like Mistborn more than Way of Kings. He likes the Punisher, my favorite Marvel character.
Mm-hmm.
John Celestri says Ben Grimm, The Thing from the early 60s. I would agree with that. I like The Thing a lot.
Oh, that's another one to add to my list. Swamp Thing.
Oh, yeah. Swamp Thing. Yeah,
always love that.
What about Man Thing?
The only thing I like about Man Thing is when my wife goes to the conventions and asks the guys for a giant-sized Man Thing. That's my favorite part about it.
Yeah, that's true. Ben was always interesting to me, just because he was so tortured because he felt like a monster. I mean, he looked like a monster.
Yeah,
and he was just this guy from the neighborhood. And he just wanted to be that guy from the neighborhood. So there was that constant struggle with him, and he was a badass, but he was, he could never beat the Hulk, and he always got his ass handed to him here and there. So it was just that, he was always just trying to be better. And that's appealing, somebody that doesn't win all the time and keeps going back to the plate and picking that bat up, facing the pitcher again. Let's see. Ice Nine Kill shirt.
Thank you, Chad. Appreciate it.
There you go. Talking about that medal.
Yeah, I'm trying to get on. They're going to be at Horror Hound convention in Cincinnati. I don't know what date that is, and I've been trying to get on it, but it's like pulling teeth just to get somebody to reply to you at the Horror Hound con.
Yeah, it's probably sold out.
It probably is.
Yeah.
I mean, usually they turn the listing off when it's sold out, so I still have high hopes.
So when, as far as like characters of your own, characters that you've created, where does that come from? Russ, let's start with you. What is there a certain character that is like your favorite character?
Well, we've only done the one book so far, Charms, and it was weird because I was driving somewhere, and I just had the thought of a girl throwing animal charms, right?
Okay.
So the first thing that I had to do is I reached out to an artist that was doing some commissions for me for fan art, right? And I'm like, hey, can you draw this? And at the time, she was just a 12 or 13-year-old kid, based off of my daughter, who my daughter was, that age at that time. And so even, their same hairstyle, blonde hair with blue dye at the ends. That's what she was sporting at the time. And then I basically pitched that to my editor, and he was like, hey, it's a good idea if you can come up with a story. And then COVID hit, and then it was sometime during COVID, right after COVID, we went to a show, and I was pitching it to Sarah, and I'm like, hey, this idea of a girl, semi Spider Gwenish,
Right.
Don't have a lot of background. Just know that, she has a charm bracelet and she can throw the animal charms and bring the animals to life, that kind of thing. And then, Sarah had all these ideas about, where she could come from and how does she get these powers, right? Because that's the important thing. Where does she get this bracelet from? How does it work?
Right.
What else is there? And so, basically I asked Sarah to write the story. She said no.
Well, because he's, I'm saying, oh, you could do this, we could make it, inherited through matriarchal line, like all this stuff, right? And so I had all these ideas for other characters and extra things, and he was like, do you want to write it? I was like, no, that's not a thing, right? And then by the time we got back from Kentucky, I was writing my first, and the comic book learning curve was steep. Like the story arc I knew. We didn't know all the intricacies of how to write for the art. You know what I mean? Like, so there's only
stick with the characters though.
We're talking about characters. Sorry.
Where did you come
So,
up
No, you can go wherever you want with it. Yeah, it's okay.
Where did you come up with the characters? I mean,
I don't know. I knew that I wanted to give her a couple friends, in there to just create more, again, depth. I also knew that I wanted some sort of struggle inherent in it. And so in book 1, you see the adults doing these things. The kids don't necessarily know that they're going to, like, this is coming, right? Their powers. So we have that juxtaposition throughout the book, and I knew I wanted that. So while she's like upset that her parents are not with her, she doesn't realize that they're out doing these good things, but they constantly struggle with, being in two places at once. And I think anybody that's a parent can relate to that struggle, while theirs is just a little bit more maybe dramatic of that piece. And so she lives with her grandmother, who's bringing her up and trying to be all the things. And so there's a lot of struggle there. And I wanted to include some bullying. I wanted to come,
which is why when I originally said that we had a 12 or 13-year-old, we ended up, when we talked to the editor and whatnot, he basically said, hey, look, if you age her up, you're going to be able to do more things with the story to make it more interesting that you probably wouldn't be able to do with a 12 or 13-year-old. So I had an image in my head of a little girl.
I didn't.
Throwing this bear animal charm and this huge bear coming to life, and and her controlling this bear, and then just ended up morphing to an older girl so that we could there were some discussions back and forth because how he saw it, and I'm like, no, I see them older. I see them as older teens.
Yeah.
And then the editor agreed with me. So, yeah.
I lost.
Mm-hmm. It tends to be the way of it with the writing, but
well, it kind of worked out because a couple years ago when I had the idea, our oldest daughter, she's going to be 16 next year. So the character in the book kind of mirrors that. So she's 15 and Charms 2, she's having her 16th birthday. So, we aged her up, and, it just happens to be my daughter's age now. So it just goes with that a little bit.
Okay.
But as far as the characters, like when, you came up with the characters and everything, did you have any, were there any novels or anything that you were like, this would make a decent character to kind of mirror or anything?
Well, that the character Joe, in my head, and I'm aging myself, but Facts of Life.
Oh yeah.
That snarky kind of rough, take no prisoners attitude that the Joe in that had.
Nancy McKeon, yep.
Is kind of where she comes from. So I really just I took ideas from some of my favorite things in reading, and I'm very good at, he gets mad at me. I've read so much now that movies and things, they can be predictable.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that for the book necessarily, and I didn't want plot holes. So, because those also annoy me, because we're not time traveling back in time in our book at any point in the future to go, oh, never mind, which seems to be the plot fixes for a lot of.
So there's not going to be any Bobby Ewing coming out of the showers in your books?
No. And so
we're putting a Lazarus pit in the basement.
Oh, sweet.
So those kinds of things were important, to me. And then like I said, we've got an arc in mind. We know kind of where it's going.
Well, I mean, there's other characters as well. So the charms themselves are characters, right? Because they become animals. So we had to figure out, okay, look, if these people are going to be fighting people with guns. If one of these animals gets shot, what happens?
Had to figure that out.
So I mean, what happens? We can't just have them constantly going against all these guys with guns and no animals getting hurt. So we had to figure out, how the characters all played on each other, and then what happens to the animals, and it all had to be fleshed out. So
book 2 does a lot of that, because again, book 1, it's you're figuring out, these adults are doing things. You can see them using their magic. You can see them, going in and storming a compound. But she's still back at home, being trained to fight, and
she
is naturally good at it. Doesn't really know why, that's such a thing. And they all are kind of starting to even get their talents for things. And again, grandma's holding down the fort at home. And meanwhile, she's wanting, where are mom and dad? Are mom and dad going to make this tournament I'm in? Are they going to be there?
Right.
And
you're telling the whole book.
I am telling, but it's book 1. So, but anyway, he gets mad that I do that, and I don't mean.
Well, it's not to interrupt you real quick, but it's shockingly hilarious to me how you two sound like Tina and I. Go ahead.
No, you should have heard us. I know you say he's going to go characters, but figuring out the words. Like I have voices for these characters, like in my head, like I hear them say these things.
Oh yeah.
And so he was in the beginning of book 1, he would just fill bubbles, right, with what he thought they might say. Now book 2, I eliminated all of that because I literally have like a script. But I'd be like, that's not what he would ever say. Like,
right.
No, that he would never say that.
See, the point, the reason was because Sarah reads novels, and I was afraid that she was basically going to fill every panel with words, and we wouldn't even be able to see the characters except maybe their eyes, and it would be words all around their eyes.
Yeah, see, I do that too, because my characters come to me in dialogue. Situations or stories come to me with the dialogue is where it comes to me first, and then I flesh it out from there. So I'm with you, Sarah. I know, and I'm very wordy. Every script that I've written the last 10 years, we've had to go when we've had to trim it just for room's sake.
Well, and I'm going to tell the story. Don't hate me. He had this one line that he kept putting in book 1. And I ended up calling it the I am Groot line. And so I went back through and used all of those for more character development.
Okay.
But I was trying to leave so he would have like a part in the writing. I was trying to leave them, and they came back from the editor and like, I love the dialogue of the teenagers. I want the whole book to read like that. And so those were all his lines. But
my whole point was I basically put word balloon where they would fit in the panel, and then I basically
stay in this.
Yeah, and I basically said, here you go, here's your outline. You know what they want to say. Go ahead and put all your words in there, because Sarah's first time doing the comic, we ended up with 1 page, and it was page 1 do this, page 2 do this, page 3. So when I went to hire an artist, I wanted someone that had done their own book before and knew that I was confident would know how to basically fill in the blanks, right? Which is where I came up with Nate Lovett.
Right.
And his art, fit the style of story that we were telling.
Oh yeah.
So Nate did a very good job of filling in those the panels where they needed to be filled in. Now with book 2, Sarah knew exactly, once we saw the pains of, okay, this person is on the right side of the panel, but they need to be speaking first. Sarah realized that she needed to let Nate know for book 2
where to put them.
Yeah, where to put the people in the panel so that who was speaking first was going to be on the right side. So it was very awesome to see Sarah's growth with just that in one book.
Right.
But yeah, so Nate got a full 3 or 4 page script for book 2. That was basically page 1, panel 1, 2, 3, and 4. Page 2, panel 1, 2, 3. So it made a big difference.
And I had already put in the dialogue, so he knew what they would say. So that way, if he needed to make something, bigger, smaller, that kind of thing to fit the bubbles, he would kind of have an idea of what they would say.
It helps with emotions. It helps with a lot of that stuff.
Well, and he even included a couple things that come later on in the book, but he knew to put them, like, that I noticed, like a wanted poster on a wall, for example, is early in the pages because he knew later on he was going to have that bad guy. So this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So are you guys? I'm assuming that you're not thumbnailing these stories out for the artist.
No. It's Nate. So Nate does. So basically, we give Nate the script. Oh, actually, Sarah writes the script, right? And then we give it to the editor. The editor makes suggestions. We make a couple changes here and there, and then we send Nate the script. And then Nate thumbnails everything out for me to approve. And then, I say, yay, go for it, and he does his thing.
And then he adds the colors to them and does that. And now he's been actually putting in the dialogue in the bubbles as well, because again,
once Sarah had,
and then he has me look at it because there's still a few things that I'm like, oh, I could say this slightly differently for a little bit more, character development even then.
Right.
So yeah,
and then once we're done, then it'll go back to the editor again, and just for that final approval of looks good, send it.
Yeah, Nate's actually he'll have a backup story in issue 3 of Pitter Patter. He did a backup story for us. And so, yeah, I'm very familiar with working with him. He's lovely stuff. Very first time I ever met him was at the Gem City Comic-Con when it was still at Wright State. Yeah. And just instantly fell in love with his artwork. And it only took 12 years to be able to, get him to do something for us. So that was awesome.
Yeah, he did the Golden Book for the 80s version of the Dungeons and Dragons, and it just came out awesome. His art really fit that Golden Book.
Oh yeah.
So I didn't know other things about him. Like I learned recently that he's inked a Spider-Man comic, and just other things like that. I was just like, wow, I had no idea that you've done this work. So.
Oh yeah, he's done a ton of stuff.
I don't think I've ever actually seen his stuff before.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think so.
It's kind of it's cartoony and it's kind of graphic-y at the same time.
Yeah, I call it serious cartoon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
serious cartoon.
Yeah.
Actually, I love that style. There was somebody I seen the other day, and I told him that their stuff was kind of like a very detailed cartoony style. It's really cool.
Yeah, I always gravitate towards that kind of stuff.
And that's since we decided it was going to be a teen plus book, we wanted to make sure that it was going to be attractive to adults and to teenagers as well.
So what about you, Richard? What characters and stuff? Are you just drawing the book that you and Tim are working on, or are you participating in the characters as well?
I'm creating the characters as well. This is Mora right here.
Wow.
So she's basically a Greek demon type thing. She haunts people's dreams. And basically the book deals with a lot of I don't want to say too much, but basically it's deals with dreams. It deals with child abuse. It deals with basically the connection that two twins have with each other.
Okay.
It deals with a lot of really deep, dark type of subjects.
Some heavy stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I always tell people I put it along with like the movie Seven, like the dark horror thrillers of the 90s.
Yeah.
That's kind of I don't know why, but I love stuff like that. I guess just twisted in a way.
No, I love Seven. That was a great movie.
What's in the box?
That was the one movie, that movie and The Crow were the two movies that really, when I walked out of the theater, I was just like, what the hell did I just watch? What did I just see?
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of what I want this book to be. I want it to be something that somebody reads and they're like, did that just really happen? Did I just read that? How was that allowed to be printed? Something like that.
No, that's great, man. It's definitely something that's going to leave a mark.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. My wife said it's his inner darkness coming out. Yeah, pretty much.
We've all got that inner darkness.
So, Richard, do you remember talking to me a couple years ago? Last year.
Yes, I do.
Last year.
Was that was it Huntington? I think it was Huntington. Yeah.
2 years ago then.
Was it 2? Yeah, it was. It was 21. It was 2021. It was last year. You did Huntington this year, 22.
Oh, you're right.
So last year, I talked to you and I talked to Adam. Both of you, at the same time, had kind of showed me these QR codes in these books that you had.
Yeah.
I think you had that book with a zombie in it or something like that. That when you scan the QR code with your phone, the zombie kind of looked like it was coming out of the panel.
Oh no! That was Adam's book Prow.
Okay.
When you put your phone over top of it, the wolf actually jumps off the book and is like standing on the book, clawing at your camera. Okay,
but I thought you had a zombie one. I thought there was somebody had a zombie one.
He might have had he did have a zombie one as well. He did a book with some guys in Spain. I can't remember the
exactly
name
over in Europe, right? He said that no one's really been doing it in the U.S.
Yep.
So in Charms 2, we're doing it.
Oh, nice.
But it's different because I'm not doing AR where you have to hold your phone over the page.
Yeah.
So basically, what happens is you scan the QR code, and the reader gets taken to. I'm posting the videos on YouTube. In private channels.
Yeah, that's the same thing I'm doing. Actually, I've got my portfolio book that I've been selling for quite a while now, and like this drawing here, when you scan the QR code, it'll take you to YouTube, and you can watch me draw it.
That's cool.
So,
I did that with we did a Killer Care Bears book, and I had Sean Forney do some pages, and he sent me the videos, and I put them up there. And on the back cover, there was a QR code that you could scan to watch Sean draw some of the Killer Care Bear pages.
Nice.
So with Charms 2, I did it a little bit different. So basically, I had an animator create these puppets. So if anybody has an iPhone and you use your animojis, where basically the camera watches your face and makes the animal, do your facial movements.
Mm-hmm.
I had him create these puppets using Adobe Character Animator, and there are characters. So basically, in Character Animator, it uses your webcam on your computer to watch your face. So we had our daughter record some videos, and basically that's what we'll do is we'll put the QR codes on the pages. When you scan them, you'll get a video, and it'll be one of our characters explaining something on the page.
Or extra thought.
Oh, that's awesome.
Something that's behind the scenes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really
cool. A little
cool.
bit more in-depth kind of stuff. So, I'm excited about that part. It's extra writing in that kind of piece, but it's going to be really
more
fun.
interaction for, something that like teenagers would love, having that extra interaction with the characters.
Right.
And the book's still, solid without those, but it's just going to add that extra. So, yeah.
Yeah. Right now, well, I already set it up for Mora, but I'm trying to make it to where basically when the book comes out, it'll have a soundtrack on Spotify. Because you could create a playlist and even upload your own album cover for the playlist. So I'm thinking about doing that and try to make it to where it has music that goes along with each page. But I like that idea you guys have. That's pretty sweet.
It's an interesting, I love that because like you said, Sarah, you have to write some more. And I'm like, great. Because there's, like I said, I'm always cutting stuff out. So if I get a chance to add more in, that's even better.
Yeah, it's deciding where to put them. Like at this point, of what do we want to, give more detail behind? Do I want to do, some of Grandma's stuff? Do I want to, we have a lot of options, so it's going to be interesting and exciting to do. And our daughter's already voiced the one, and we know who we want to voice Joe.
Yeah.
And
her friend, we've got other people that are all like, I want to do it. I want to voice characters.
We have to be kind of selective on that, but it should feel pretty on point with the age they are too. So excited about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that's a good way to keep people's attention and like you said, get more interactivity like a talk.
Yeah.
Because I mean, let's face it, these days the attention spans are kind of like basketball. It's measured in nanoseconds.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
Well, her group is our toughest. I worry about her group even above the editor. I don't like the editor part just because, I want him to have minimal things, but her group getting the, wow, Mom, this is actually pretty good, was high praise. From them. So having them kind of voice some of that is going to be really cool.
It's just how teenagers are now. I mean,
they're cut you to the quick, man. Honey badger energy.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Hey, we've got somebody watching us from Peru.
Wow.
Yeah, I saw that. That's pretty awesome.
Ephraim, how we doing, buddy? Thanks for tuning in tonight. All the way from Peru. Let's see. Allison says, Nate and my friend Rob of Sketchcraft have that serious cartoony style. Yes, Rob has a very. So I love Rob's stuff is amazing. And C says, yeah, that's actually pretty cool. He's talking about those QR codes.
We have two if anybody wants them. Two. What do we have two of? It's definitely not dollars.
Right? 'Tis the season.
Yeah.
Do they have any other characters in the works, or is Charms the only one?
Do you guys have any other characters in the works, or is Charmed kind of your bread and butter right now?
Yeah, that's pretty much the comic that we're working on. But I think that we know that there's a lot of different ways we can go with that because, Sarah's already thinking about other groups of kids. Because I mean, these kids, there's 3 kids.
There's always a trio.
Yeah, there's a charm bearer, a forger, and a magic wielder. So it's always the trio. So, if we decide we want to do a different trio, we can go, anywhere to any city or whatever and have another trio basically going through the same process.
Purposely have some core in the adult team, but then some new folks coming in occasionally already that we could go back to their main trio as well if we wanted to, because I've already as long as all 3 exist somewhere in the world, powers don't diminish.
Right.
It's kind of how in my head I've got it figured out. So they can go and help on other teams and whatnot. Anyway, so we've got a lot of those types of groups, and there could be spinoffs, and I love the interconnectivity when I read of different groups. And oh man, I read that character from 2 series ago, and now I get a little bit more depth with that character and what their origin is, and I kind of like the idea of that.
Yeah.
So that was something that I had said to him would be really kind of cool to be able to do. But we definitely want to get through these 4 and get the arc going, and see where it goes.
So it's going to be a 4-issue miniseries, and then you're going to expand.
It's the origin. It's an origin arc. Yep.
Origin arc. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, it's interesting that you find ways to link worlds, because I was actually going over one of the new books that we're working on with my artist C there. It's in the sections comments there, and I found a way, and I wasn't even trying. An idea came to me. There's something that happens in the book that's kind of a pivotal moment, and I had been working on issue 3 of Pitter Patter, and I was like, oh wow, this could be, I could connect this with these characters here, and all of a sudden, like, everything just expanded even more. Being able to link the 2 books together with peripheral characters, because Pitter Patter's more cute and kid-friendly and innocent, where Doghouse is a little more adult-oriented. So we don't want the main characters crossing over, but like the peripheral characters and situations happen in one book. It's the same universe, but it's like kids' world, adults' world. So, and it happened so completely organically, and I was just like, oh, this is so perfect. Those characters, they never stop talking to you.
So how is their crowdfunder?
How's the crowdfunder going, guys?
It's going well. It's just different than Kickstarter. It's just a little bit different, but it's a new platform. It's only been around for 3 months or so, 4 months. So the backers aren't there. So it's trying to get the Kickstarter backers to be okay moving over to Crowdfundr. So that's the big hurdle right now.
It has a lot of bells and whistles that he likes. Some of which he actually suggested and they ran with. And I don't know if you guys know, like, he does a lot of behind the scenes.
Oh, they know.
Okay, for folks. So, so the fact that he made suggestions to make Crowdfundr better, and I had originally thought we were going to do one, and if it didn't work, do the other one. But that's not the case now. So we're going to do this one on Crowdfundr. So, and just Crowdfundr. And so far, it seems like,
you keep tossing that out there, like you're bummed that I'm not going to Kickstarter. There's no point.
I think it's just because the Kickstarter Indiegogo thing that people do, and but no, we're doing fine on Crowdfundr.
It's the problem is that if I ran on Crowdfundr and then I decided to go do Kickstarter afterwards, the people that backed us on Crowdfundr were from Kickstarter. So
yeah,
I wouldn't really gain anything by running it over on Kickstarter afterwards.
Right.
And I get that.
So if now I will say, if we did $200 on Crowdfundr, then I would have definitely been like, all right, we're going to go try Kickstarter.
Right.
But it's just a different there's just different little things that Crowdfundr does that I like better. But afterwards, after the campaign ends, I can just turn it into a store. So anybody that missed out will still be able to buy the books.
Yeah,
that's one thing I'm not looking forward to, is the whole Kickstarter or crowdfunding or whatever. I have no clue how to do it. Number one,
there are definitely ways to do it right,
yeah,
and there are ways to do it wrong. So I tell everybody not to get into Kickstarter or get into crowdfunding too much. But if people don't go into your campaign, it does not matter what it looks like on the inside.
Right.
So the first thing that you have to do is you have to make sure that you have an attractive cover image, the image that is on that you used as your Kickstarter thumbnail, and then you have to make sure that your goal is attainable.
Yeah.
If your goal is too high, if you set a goal of $3,500 and you get 2 weeks in and you're only at 50%, people will look at that as they're scrolling and be like, oh, I don't think they're going to make it. They won't even look. They just keep scrolling. So the best thing to do is to try to hit, set a goal, $750, whatever, hit it in 1 or 2 days, and then push the remainder of your campaign to get, what you're actually after, the $3,500 or whatever. Because it's so stressful because most backers back in the first 48 hours and the last 48 hours. So the middle 2 weeks is you're just sitting there like, why isn't anybody backing?
Right. And I even thought about just, raising the money that I need to produce the book and, pay the artists that I have for the variant covers and stuff like that. Cause I have some artists that I'm trying to bring in on it. And then do it. And if I make the money back, I make the money back. If I don't, I don't.
And that's what we do. I mean, I basically do all of the, I've set up crowdfunding campaigns for people. I've done like 40 this year. And, so anything that I do coloring wise, lettering, editing, any money I make, doing the crowdfunding, all that money basically goes right to the book, to charms, right to Nate Lovett, basically.
But it is, he said like that's legacy, of something you put out in the world that you created. So
yep, something that your kids can say, look what my parents did. Yep.
Right.
Yeah. So, and we're trying to create a good product while we're doing it. So.
All right, guys, we're gonna run that bump real quick. So if you need a drink or whatever, you got what is it? 2 minutes?
Yeah, 2 minutes.
2 minutes. So have at it.
Sweet.
Question or comment for us to address on the show? Have a topic you want us to talk about? Email us at indiecomicsnetwork@gmail.com. Want your comics to arrive in pristine condition? Head over to GeminiComicSupply.com and save 10% on your next Gemini mailer order or anything in the Gemini Comic Supply store. Use coupon code RAGIN10. That's RAGIN 10.
It is difficult to write these words, but I must for my own sake. I have done, seen, and been part of many things in my life.
Hey, we're back.
The music.
So Rodney, when did you guys start running on Nita and Daphne's?
Is
that recent?
3 months?
Yeah, about what'd you say, about 2 months? Yeah, it's been about
really?
2 months. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we just started just a new look. Just trying to reconfigure some stuff, changing some things around here and there, and just
We get more viewers.
and we're getting more viewers over here, and
Yeah, no, I believe it. I mean, they're good peeps.
yeah, and yeah, it's just good folks. It's a lot of fun, and I'm on 3 shows a week here, so it's been fun.
No, that's cool.
Yeah, advantageous, good people to work with, and we all get along, and it's not that we didn't get along anywhere else before, but it's
Right.
just yeah.
No, it's good. It's always good to network, right? The more you
Absolutely.
network and you build those relationships, obviously the more it works out, the more viewers and the more backers and everything. It's just
It's all good. It all
Yeah.
feeds itself.
Heck, I think the first time I met you, Rodney, was at the how
Was it
Torg?
Torg?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was Torg.
Torg last year.
Did you
And
guys
it-
like Torg? Are you guys doing Torg this year?
We did it this year, and
Oh, it already happened. I thought it was in December.
no, it was last month.
Yeah, it was last month.
Okay.
It was amazing.
Yeah, I don't think I did it this year because I think that was during the same time as the Memphis show, I want to say. But
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah, you guys were going to Memphis. Yeah,
Did
but
you
it
like
was it was a great show. We weren't expecting that crowd and that kind of business. We sold books all day long on consistent
I think it's
basis.
so hard to predict how a show is going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially these days.
Well,
I
the
thought
fact that
Tuesday-
it was a gaming show, and we did a specific Pac-Man piece just for the game or just for the show because it's a gaming show. Of course, we didn't sell a single print, and we sold our artwork, but we sold books all day long, which is great.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
All right, I'll have to think about that one next year then.
Yeah. Well, where are you guys located, Russ?
We're in Marietta, Ohio.
Oh, okay.
Oh, nice.
Right now, well, you guys are
We're
not in
Ohio
Ohio.
folks.
Well, Richard's in Ohio, but Rodney's not in Ohio.
Well, we're the greater Cincinnati area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
Nice.
Yes, Cincy, Jersey.
Yeah.
Right across the river. So we talked about characters that we love, and where a lot of the characters come from. What are characters or characteristics or things that you hate in writing and or characters?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think it's hard to hate a character. I mean, unless they're just so evil. Well, I'll give you a perfect example. The writers of Game of Thrones wrote a perfect Joffrey because he basically won't act anymore because he got so much hate.
Well, okay. So what I meant was, what do you hate to see? What do you hate about a character? What if you were Sarah? If you were writing a story, what are you not going to write into a character? Characteristics or situations. For
I
instance,
think I told you guys, like anything that has a very obvious plot hole. Like I get annoyed by those in some of the movies like that we watch and things.
Is there anything about a character though that you wouldn't put in a character? Like you wouldn't give him give them a certain background or?
Well, like for me, for example, real quick, back in the 90s and when we were doing the Superior 7, which was a superhero book, we would not have a superhero carrying a gun. That was just something we weren't going to do. As an example.
I probably, I wouldn't use any speech even in my bullies that was derogatory or bigoted, I think would be a big. I would never write that.
Okay.
What's that?
What about you, Richard? Is there anything off base?
I think we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier. I'm all for the female physique. But I think that just throwing a half naked girl out there and calling it a character is really not my thing.
Right.
So yeah, I would say probably that is the biggest one. I don't know if it's more depth in the character itself, but I kind of think that there should be a little more than just throwing a half-naked girl out there and
Right.
calling
So
it a comic book.
Yeah, you're not down with the gimmicks.
Along
Right.
those same lines, I think I've said especially at cons and things, that the characters in this book are more than just females with boyfriends. Like they can hold their own in their own right.
Yeah.
They have, lives, and it's not just a placeholder for a partner. So that's important to me.
Well, yeah, and I think that's what folks that are coming to our tables to begin with are pretty seasoned readers. If they're into the indie scene at all, they want something different. They want something that's going to quote unquote challenge them as a reader, something that's going to give them that depth, and they know that more times than not they're going to get that with an indie book. So I am totally down with that.
Yeah, I mean, I realize stuff like that sells very well.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to do something like that just to sell a book. It's just not my thing.
Right.
And he's right. If you look at the Kickstarters that do the most numbers, they're usually the TNA kind of books.
Yeah.
And we're okay with that.
Yeah,
I'm not having that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't pay our bills, so this is a fun thing for us to do. And I think a lot of indie artists are the same way, right? They're just looking. They just don't want to go broke doing it, which that would be the nice thing, but they want to do it because it's a dream, right? Having people, read something that you created, or if it's just art, hang something on the wall that you created. That's, it's just cool.
Yeah.
Right. And I've actually told a couple people that I've worked with, like I even told the owner of the company where I work, my main goal in life is to create something that becomes a movie and actually to be able to work in the art department on that movie. I don't want to direct it. I don't want to be a big name on it. I just want to work in the art department on that movie. That's it.
Yep.
So if I can accomplish that, then
You can die a happy man.
I could die a happy man. And by the time I accomplish that, I just might die after that. I mean, heck, I'm already starting to do this stuff at age 42, 3. I think 42. I think about what I was there for a second.
So, Hasm says Russ will tell you though, sexy sells, especially on covers.
Well, I mean, I think, when you look at crowdfunding, I've talked about this on the last couple of shows I've been on, like over 60% of the backers that are backing crowdfunding campaigns are collectors.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily care what's in the story or what's on the internal pages. They just collect the covers. It's just about collecting. I mean, and I used to do the same thing back in the 90s. I liked certain art. You like Spawn, if there was a cover that I like, I don't care what's on the inside. I just buy it because I like the cover art.
Are you still a hardcore collector Spawn fan?
Yes and no. I buy Gunslinger because I think it's a very pretty book, done by Brett Booth, Adelso, Corona, and Ivan Nunez. So I buy that book, but I don't really read comics. I just I buy for the art basically. So if I see something I like, then I'll buy it for sure.
And I did that too, growing up. Any cover that was done by John Byrne or Michael Golden, I was buying it, whether it was a book that I read on a regular basis or not.
Yeah. I
just love their covers. I just love their art. So that was automatically snag. I'm taking this. Snag. I'm taking that.
Yeah, I still do that. I mean, Kyle Holtz, every every con that I see him at, he hates me. He has to hate me. He always says he doesn't mind it, but I always give him like a stack of books to sign. And I mean, that dude's artwork is just absolutely phenomenal.
Because he's in Ohio too.
Yep, he's in it's close to Dayton. That's where he lives.
Oh, he lives. Okay, I wasn't sure if he lived close to Dayton or Canton.
What's his name?
Kyle Haus.
Is it Hotz or Hotz?
Hotz.
Hotz.
It's Hotz. Everybody always says Hotz, but it's Hotz.
Yeah.
I've known him since I was like 16 years old. He's been like a really close friend of the family's.
Yeah, he's done some crazy Venom variants and he does Marvel covers, so
I have to check him out. I probably know him. The name's not ringing a bell.
He's one of the guys that I want to try to get to do a cover for my book. I'm going to talk to him. Well, actually, I already talked to him. He's already told me a price and everything, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to talk to Kelly Jones, and I put a bug in James Abar's ear about it, but I'm hoping that he'll actually do it.
Oh, that'd be
some of these guys. It's so hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. To try to get them interested in doing an indie cover.
Yeah, I'm really hoping I could get James Abar on it, but if not, then at least I tried.
Allison says, I once asked Bernie Wrightson to sign a literal suitcase full of books. Yeah. Well, I can relate to that because Michael Golden was like one of my guys. Everything he did, because he's got the cartoony style and his stuff is just uber detailed, and I was just in love with it. And I'd never met him, and there was never a picture of him. Nobody ever knew what he looked like. So I saw that he was going to be at the Gem City show in like 2009 or 10 or something. So it was like, me and my buddies like, oh, we got to go. And I took probably between 15 and 20 books of his that I had. And I just completely devolved into fanboy. And I just, because I had 35 years worth of questions that I wanted to ask him. And to his credit, he sat there and he answered every single question for me. And he signed all the books for me. And I was watching him work on a commission, and he was inking all this intricate detail in the background with a brush. And he said he does everything with a brush. And I was like, wait a second. I said, you mean it? And I had one of the covers of The Punisher where he had the 50 caliber he's holding in his hand, he's firing, and it's got the tracer rounds, and every fifth round is red and all this other stuff. And you mean to tell me you inked all of this with a brush? He goes, I inked everything with a brush. And that just blew my mind, because I was watching him do these ellipses and stuff that, I pull out a circle template and an elliptical template, and I'm doing this, on the computer consoles and stuff like that. And no, he's just inking everything with a brush. And I'm like, I just want to reach over and punch him in the head. Oh my God, you make me sick, but I love you. So, yeah,
that's awesome.
Our it's funny how as grown men we still have things like that can turn us into little boys.
Well, I mean, I collected comics like in middle school. And then I got out of it. And then when I went to the Navy in the late 90s, I went to San Diego Comic-Con and got back into it again. And then I sold all my books for rent money and got out of it. And then when I got an iPad in 2018 and started coloring, I got back into comics again. So I've been in and out, been a in and out kind of guy with comics. But it's interesting. It sucks because that I didn't get back into them until because now I'm 47 now. So I didn't really get back into them until I was like 43. And, all these great artists and everything, I wasn't going to shows or anything. So I didn't, all these guys now that I wish that I could meet, they've all died. So it's like, sucks.
Yeah.
Because I'll never get the chance. I hear everybody talk about how awesome they were to meet and everything else, and I'll never get that, that experience of meeting them.
Yeah, it's I kind of had the same thing with Bernie Wrightson, like Mid Ohio Comic Con, which I'm sure you remember those, Rodney.
Oh yeah, the really good ones back in the 90s.
They're amazing. They were so amazing. But I used to go there. I went there 98, 99, and 2000, I believe. And of course, Bernie Wrightson was there every year. But every time I'd go to his table, I would just sit there and stare at this one piece of artwork he had. It's called Mementos. And I was always scared, just a scared shitless little guy. I wouldn't go up and talk to him. I don't know why. I just didn't have the guts to do it. And which later on to find out, I talked to his wife about that, and she was like, well, that you should have just went and talked to him. He would have loved it, and everything. But yeah, I always wanted that piece of artwork, but of course I couldn't afford it back then. Well, my wife actually bought me a print of it for Christmas. She found it that Bernie signed and everything. So, but yeah, if I could turn back time, that's definitely the time I'd turn it back to.
Yeah.
I've told this story before, but I'm going to tell it again real quick. The Mid Ohio Con back in the 80s or back in the 90s was just amazing. Because everybody that didn't do shows did it because it was for multiple sclerosis. Because Roger Price, who owned the show, had MS, so everybody turned out. It was one of the 3 shows a year that John Byrne attended. So I met him there for the first time, and me and 3 other grown men turned into 5-year-olds for about 15 minutes. But I'd gotten pretty chummy with Mike Mignola over the course of about 4 or 5 years. And this was back before it was a media thing. And like I probably in early 2000s, I was in Chicago, and I met Brian Bendis when he was doing the Fortunes. I can't think of the rest of the name, but he was by himself at a table, kind of off to the side, and nobody knew who he was. And I stood there and talked to him for like an hour and a half. And he gave me Fortune and Glory was the book he was working on. He gave me the trade of goldfish, and he was telling me about he had Torso also, which is the story about the serial killer that Elliot Ness was trying to capture after he moved from Chicago to Cleveland and became the police chief. But anyway, I was talking to Mike, same kind of conversation, and he was like, "Hey, let me show you something. I'm gonna get your opinion on this." So he pulls out this sketchbook and he folds it open and he lays it on the counter. He says, "What do you think about this character here?" And he points to it. And I was like, "What's with the goggles on his head?" He's like, "No, those aren't goggles. Those are horns. He grows horns. He's a demon from hell, and he hates the horns, so he always saws them off with a saw." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "What's the deal with this big hand?" He goes, "Well, that's part of his origin." I was like, "Okay." He said, "Well, do you like it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think he's badass." Because, at that time I was, 23, 24 years old, 18 to 34-year-old guys, hey, that was right in my wheelhouse. I was like, yeah. And I've been I stood there and had that conversation with him, and you can't do that now.
Nope.
You just can't do that. John Byrne, we all stood there and talked to John Byrne, and he was telling us that kind of a similar conversation that I had with Michael, and he said, how do you do all that detail and stuff in the background? He said, it's all just lines. He said, if you just look at it, it's all lines. It's all horizontal and vertical lines. That they don't really mean anything. They're just taking up space. And my buddy that was drawing the book, Superior 7, he was doubting himself and everything. And he says, well, if you want to be a better artist, he said, the advice that I give to kids is get a stack of paper that's about 2 foot tall. He says, draw on every piece of that paper from one corner to the next, completely covered with drawings, and stack that paper over on one side of you. And then when you get done with it, take that paper and turn it over and completely cover every piece of the back of that page. And by the time you get both sides of those pages filled up, you'll be a better artist. And we were just, like sage words from the Grand Poobah. We were all just like, whoa, the master has spoken. But I will never forget those conversations because those are two of my idols. And, to touch on your point, Russ, you can't do that now. You just can't do it.
Yeah. And I really wish that con could come back. I know it never will, but that was probably one of the best experiences I've ever had in the comic book industry. I mean, really.
Yeah, that was other than Chicago every year. That was my favorite show because it was you could create those personal relationships with the artists because you could just stand there and talk to them. It was great.
Yeah, actually, I think it was 2000 when this happened. I'm not 100% positive, but my dad had went and picked me up because I was a young kid and I wasn't even able to drive at the time. So my dad picks me up and he was like, "Who was that you were standing there talking to? Was that Lou Ferrigno?" I was like, "Yeah, we were just standing outside talking."
Yeah, when I went to San Diego Comic-Con in the late 90s, I mean, comics were big, but, going to shows and stuff wasn't as big as what it is now. So same thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was, Image had started its own thing. I mean, I had to wait, maybe 3 to 5 people in line, to get Todd McFarlane's signature and Larson and Liefeld and Portacio, everybody. And yeah, the same Ultimate Warrior that I think it was 96, I think something like that. That Ultimate Warrior came out with his own comic. So yeah, standing there talking to the Ultimate Warrior, and it was it's very cool. Anybody that hasn't done comic book shows, it's definitely a very cool thing to do.
Yeah,
it's changed a lot now because most comic book shows are pop cons basically.
Yeah.
Pop culture. So
Well,
a lot more actors.
Yeah, Steel City is more of a pop con than anything, but it's still a great show. I have a lot of fun. There's a lot of artists there. A lot of our friends, like artist friends, are there that we go out and have dinner with and stuff. But Memphis Con, I was actually really shocked with that one, and I had a blast at that one. Being able to talk to Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder, and James Avar, just being able to sit down and talk with him. It was an experience for sure.
And I think they're all from that area, so I think they do those shows every year.
Yeah, I don't know.
James is from Detroit.
Okay.
Yeah. No, James is in Texas now.
Oh, he's in Texas now?
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
he got out of Detroit. He said he got sick of it.
Oh, good. I'm glad he was able to get out.
Yeah. But I don't know if Capullo is from that area or not.
I think he's a New York guy.
Is he?
Really?
I think, but I wouldn't swear to it.
Now, Tom, it's funny because Tom Warzakowski, who letters all the Spawn books, has since Spawn #1. And he's like 60-some years old. He lives in like Elyria or Lorraine, something like that. He lives in Cleveland.
Yeah. I ran into him. It was in Detroit. We were getting ready to go to one of the after parties, and I ran into him out in the lobby, and I didn't know who he was, and we were just striking up a conversation. Come to find out, it was him, and we stood there for probably 45 minutes and talked, and he was the nicest guy you would ever want to meet, and just incredibly knowledgeable and just personable. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, this guy lettered Uncanny X-Men when it was when Claremont and Byrne were on it. He's lettered, he's lettered, and like you said, Spawn from
so
issue
many.
one.
Yeah, he's like the guy.
Yeah, he was the guy before Blambot came around.
Yeah, and I was lucky. I've actually I've had him letter a couple projects that I worked on. So I did a it's funny. I worked on a bootleg comic called Image Grand Design by the cartoonist Kayfabe guys.
Okay.
And I colored 4 pages for an artist buddy of mine. And he's like, do you know anybody that we can get to letter this? And I'm like, oh, I can ask Tom. And he was like, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I worked on another project with him, so I'm like, I'm sure he'll do it. And he did. And the artist was so ecstatic that Tom did the pages for us. So
now, is he still doing it organically, or has he moved to digital?
I think he has moved to digital.
Okay.
I think he'd have to, because if I'm not mistaken, I think he might be lettering all the Spawn books. And there's like 5 of them now. So I mean, I don't know if he could do it the traditional way, with all 5 books.
Yeah.
Plus all the stuff he's doing on the side.
That's crazy. I wasn't aware that he was still lettering, so that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember if he told me it was 60, 63, 64, 66, something like that.
That's amazing.
You guys going to have him do your book, or?
No, I letter Charms myself just to save the money. I use an application called Comic Life 3. It's a $60 one-time fee app. It's just super simple to do. I mean, you literally drag the pages into the application and then drag the word bubbles where you want them and type. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah, drag the sound effects. Yeah, it's. I mean, even if you hire a letterer later, as a writer, it's really nice to use just to see, where you can fit balloons and figure out how much, what words you can fit in that balloon in that space.
Right.
So.
Notice he's not the writer, so what he's saying is he's going to make sure that I keep the art.
Yes, exactly. Like, now here you go. This is the space that you have.
It's really how that works. Yes.
This is how much room you get.
I don't care what you put in this balloon, but you can't grow the balloon.
Yeah, in book 1, I heard you're ruining the art so many times, so that I pared it down to get.
It's definitely an interesting discussion when you have a writer who doesn't give a crap about the art, and then someone who loves the art and doesn't read.
He likes the story, but how we get from point A, I just have to figure that out. Like, how do we get the arc that's supposed to be there? So yeah.
See, I think creators like us are missing out on a market, because we should totally just have a microphone running, all the time, and then just sell those audio files one day of just how everything's created, and the bickering back and forth. And no, that looks like shit. Do it over. What's wrong with you? Are you drunk?
He actually used the line in book 1. He's like, I don't like that word. People aren't going to know that word. I'm like, oh my goodness. Yes, they will. But yeah, anyway.
Allison, it's Comic Life 3. Comic Life 3.
Very user friendly.
Yep.
Hey Phil, how you doing, man?
Hey, what's up, Phil?
So yeah, it's definitely interesting. When you talk about the crowdfunding, Richard, something to think about. With Crowdfundr, they do things a little bit differently than Kickstarter does. With Kickstarter, you get your money 2 weeks after your project ends, and with Crowdfundr, you get your money right away. So when someone charges their card or they use PayPal, the fees are deducted right there from the pledge, and you get the money. So
okay,
you don't have to.
They don't hold it. They don't hold it and earn interest off the money.
No,
like everybody else.
And the other thing though is they also don't include the shipping fees in your total that you've earned, but they do have them, taken out. So,
okay,
it's a little misleading, because it's when you look at like the amount that somebody has earned on Crowdfundr, that money that they're showing doesn't include the shipping like Kickstarter does. Kickstarter, you see someone makes $5,000 on Kickstarter, and people backing, if they don't fully understand, they don't know that. Well, that also includes the 8%, 8.5% that Kickstarter is taking out, and also the shipping.
Yeah.
So it's not you're not fully getting $5,000. It's a little misleading. So
yeah, a lot of people don't realize. They think that $5,000 is going in your pocket and you're going to magically produce a comic book.
Yeah.
And if you don't,
$5,000 sounds great.
Yeah, if you don't account for international shipping, that could burn you as well.
That's rough. Jeez. Even shipping to Canada is like $22, $23.
Well, and those fees too. Crowdfundr gives the backer the option to pay those.
The transaction costs. So basically, instead of you paying the 5%, they ask the backer if the backer is willing to cover the cost of their transaction. So it can be, $2.50 or it can be $5. And they're finding that 75 to 80% of the backers just pay the fee because they're trying to help out the creator. So like for Charms 2 right now, our effective rate that we have to pay back to Crowdfundr is 1.2% because a big chunk of the backers have paid their transaction cost.
Yeah.
So it saved us a ton of money.
Oh, that's great.
That is great.
Yeah.
It's definitely stuff that collectors or readers aren't thinking of.
Yeah.
Oh, I know this is kind of off the topic, but it's kind of not, considering it, talking about fees. What do you guys think about the whole thing with Peter David?
With the GoFundMe. Well, I mean, so basically, Peter David had a couple strokes. He's in the hospital, and he set up a GoFundMe, or somebody on behalf of him has set up a GoFundMe to help cover his medical costs, and that's a common thing these days.
Yeah, I think it's great, but I think it's what really upsets me is the fact that there aren't companies that he worked for and has created for
are not
stepping up and helping him with that.
No, well, Warner Brothers were completely content with giving Siegel and Schuster just $20,000 a year for years and years and years and years until the fans found out about it and basically guilted them into giving them more money.
Yeah.
That's just the corporate world. Yeah, they're not going to give anything they don't have to give. And I mean, it's been going on for generations. We could go all the way back to Disney, back in the 30s and stuff.
Yeah.
They're always fighting for more money it's just
I mean, look at all that crap that Neil Adams that advocated for years for artists to get their artwork back because they used to not even get their artwork back.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for him, that wouldn't be a thing now.
All right.
A lot of people don't realize that about him. They a lot of times when the conversation comes up about Neil Adams, it's always how mean he was to somebody at a portfolio review.
Oh, he was a hard ass. He definitely was, but that's
how you learn.
Yeah, that's what he needed to be.
He was old school.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't know how much he fought in the 60s and 70s for creators' rights. So, yeah.
So Marvel, when artists would turn in their pages for their comic book, Marvel would keep the pages. And they're not. I mean, that sucks. I mean, now when artists draw pages, they basically scan them digitally.
Right.
Digital copies go to.
It's kind of like the same as universities that keep the discoveries of their faculty.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah, similar.
Yeah.
All right,
anything
guys.
that creates you.
We're approaching the bottom of the hour, so let's go ahead and wrap it up. I think we've covered everything we wanted to cover up. So I am going to go around the room, and once more, everybody just tell everybody where you can be found and plug your current project. So Richard, let's start with you, buddy.
All right. Well, you can find me at rlj3.com, rlj3art on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. And I am currently working on more, which, like I said, should be out by October 31st of 2023.
There we go. Sounds good. All right, Russ and Sarah.
Sarah stays hidden.
They're honestly my day job. I'm a director of behavioral health, and so he gets to be the front of the house for social media stuff.
Fair enough.
No, but I mean, you search Russ Cassedy, you find me anywhere on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Hive, TikTok, whatever. I'm everywhere.
Last name
Excellent.
spelled funny.
Yeah.
That's nice.
I will spell it the rest of my life. I'm sorry, but it's true. So it's Cassedy.
And our book is Charms. Second issue is on Crowdfundr right now. You can get both books 1 and 2, or the digital if you prefer the digital. And
We would
that's pretty much
appreciate the
it.
support. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, I am Rodney Fike. You can find me. You go to Linktree and just find me, Rodney Fike, or Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, all that, Rodney Fike Art. I am also on the Indy Comics Network 3 days a week. Sketchy Saturdays at 10 a.m. Here on Thursday nights, and Tuesdays at 8 p.m. for Dispatches Outside the Box, all Eastern times. Currently working on our new book, Doghouse, with C. Michael Lanning as the artist. So coming out in 23, and also Adam Fields is currently working on the last issue of Roadkill Rampage, issue 4. The pages are amazing. They look sweet. He's been feeding them to us.
He's doing a killer job on that book.
Oh my God. He was going to take a page to the show this weekend and ink it. And I was like, no, don't, because the conditions aren't conducive to kicking out the kind of quality you've been kicking out with this book. Just take it off. Take the day off. Do your commissions. Leave the inking to home. He's like, all right, dude, cool. So, all right, guys. So that's the show for tonight. Hey, listen, thanks everybody for stopping in. Everybody in the comment section, thank you all for participating and giving us a little bit of your time tonight. We appreciate it. So for Richard Jones III and Russ and Sarah Cassedy, this is Rodney Fike saying, so long, everybody. Take care of yourselves and each other. Good night.
All right. Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
The views and opinions